So, with that invigorating power nap out of the way, I feel energized and ready to take on the rest of this Christmas day. And things have turned out to be pretty eventful so far. I mean, we've gotten quite a few clues about some of the ongoings within the town, and we do have a few leads to follow up on, though before we get to those, I feel like there's something we need to pop into the general store for first. Because at this point, enough time has passed that the sweep of the forest is over. And that means that hopefully Captain Nas here might have some new useful information for us. And indeed it does. It seems they did find some bear paw prints out in the forest, and they were exceptionally big. And they're going to be doing something more tomorrow in regards to that. Now, what they are going to be doing is they're going to be heading out into the forest, but in a somewhat smaller group. Cohen mentions that going out in a smaller group, might be more productive to finding the bear's lair or, finding tracks in general. Maybe so many people milling about out there was, getting in the way of tracking. But Nas is nice enough to inform us about what time that new search is going to be going on tomorrow. And it is going to be at a crisp 7 a.m. in the morning. As you can imagine, though, much like with the previous search, we are going to want to come. But, yeah, it's pretty highly doubtful that Morgan is going to be good with it, and Nas isn't really wanting to ruffle any feathers, so I would say that we are going to respect that, but I feel like, tomorrow 7 a.m., we are going to be up bright and early, heading out into the forest. Now, though, as we head out into the town proper, we see the day-night cycle really kicking into play here. Yeah, dusk comes quite a bit early in Mizzurna Falls. It's only 5 p.m., but already the moon is starting to come out, and the lights around town are certainly starting to come on. It certainly does lend a different type of atmosphere to the town. I really do feel, I don't want to say creepy vibe, but it's definitely different. For now, though, one of the leads I want to follow up on is over in the hospital, so we are going to take a quick trip over there. Though it's not going to be immediately evident why we are going to want to head over there, there's definitely some events in the game that are super relevant to the story and are going to be used to unlock things later on, but they are really easy to miss. In this case, there is something we definitely want to make sure and be at the hospital for around 6 p.m. But it definitely doesn't hurt to go there a little bit earlier and talk to a few folks there to, I guess, sort out some additional information, especially, after the town or the city council meeting we looked in on at the church, and probably that additional information we got from the book, the philosopher's book that Emma was looking at the library. I think James might be able to help us with that. First and foremost, though, I think we've gotten enough of Barbara. So instead, the first person we actually want to hit up is Dr. Samuel here. It's a bit difficult to identify this guy as Dr. Samuel. At most, you can maybe see on his low-res face that there is a little bit of a mustache there. But yeah, the first thing we want to get into is, the bruising that was found on Kathy's neck. There's still a bit of a question why that's not more of an issue with the police or, any type of forensics or, I guess, an autopsy at this point. There is still the fact that her funeral is tomorrow, so I guess any examination of the body is kind of be moot at that point, right? And yeah, there's still the fact that, the police and even Dr. Samuel here doesn't want to look into the possibilities that there might indeed have been someone actively trying to kill Kathy. Which is a bit of a shame. I mean, there were clearly choke marks, so something must have been going on there. But yeah, Dr. Samuel points out, it's a small town, there's not a lot of violent crime. It's highly unlikely there would have been a murder here. He does at least agree to the fact that, there was some form of assault that occurred with Kathy. Otherwise, though, we do try to get a little bit more information from Dr. Samuel here, at least maybe a time of death. We know at this point that the last time that somebody saw Emma was around 10 p.m. But yeah, Dr. Samuel really can't postulate about when Kathy might have died. The most he can give kind of a ballpark 24-hour figure, which is a bit vague. It's a bit, I don't know. I can understand, though, there's, the weather to consider. There's also the bear attack and maybe claw marks, things like that kind of covered things up. If anything, though, he's pretty certain that it was a man that was attacking and choking Kathy, due to the size and shape of the bruising. Considering, though, that he did just admit to not really being a choking victim expert, it's a little bit hard to take him seriously, especially when the next thing he says is that it's just intuition he's going off of. Which, I don't know. It's difficult to take that with more than a grain of salt. And to take Dr. Samuel even less seriously, he starts to spin this weird yarn about how, for some reason, in his mind, Kathy and another guy went out to the forest on that Christmas Eve to have a illicit liaison, and after Kathy turned him down, the guy got angry, started choking her, and coincidentally, a bear came by and mauled her? Doesn't really make a lot of sense. It more or less seems like Dr. Samuel's weird, erotic fan fiction about the event. And while Matthew wants to try to give Kathy the benefit of the doubt and assume that she isn't the type of person to just go have those illicit liaisons out in the middle of nowhere, Dr. Samuel does end up having kind of a good point that we've pretty much hammered on at this point, which is the fact that who really knew Kathy at this point in the game? I mean, that we still have no idea who her friends were, who this mystery man might have been that, in Dr. Samuel's mind, went out to the forest with her. Honestly, at this point, we even question whether or not her father really knew that much about her. So yeah, just another person really not up for the idea about attempted murder, and just kind of glossing over the whole choking angle of Kathy's body. But we can always go get a second opinion, as long as we go hit up Dr. James. Yeah, while he did offer to talk to us later at, I think, 8 p.m. at Bar Wolves, we can still hit him up here. And you might recall that, Dr. Samuel's prognosis for death was shock, but there is still a question of what was the catalyst of that shock. And, Dr. James does have some ideas. The human mind is a multifaceted, mysterious organ of the human body. What triggers it, what causes it to remember certain things is it's sometimes not as clear-cut as, A or B or C. It could easily be X, Y, or Z. So what could have caused Kathy to go off the deep end there and just shut down? It's a bit difficult to say. Matthew, though, seems very certain that there had to have been something in the room at that time that triggered that flashback to the bear attack, to being choked. Just the question of what could it have been? Yeah, sadly, at this point, it's all a bit of a guessing game. The only person that really would have had any idea about any of that would have probably been Kathy herself. She hopefully would have known her mind better than anybody else. Beyond that, there is still the question of that bookmark passage that we found in the school library. And Dr. James, especially considering when we talked to him in the prologue, when he talked about the philosophical quandaries that Emma was suffering from, I get a good impression that he might know something about this passage. I mean, it already seems to talk and question about the point of existence and how anybody can ever really know. But Dr. James goes into a bit of an overly condescending mode, considering all of our detective work and efforts. He is definitely talking down to us at this point. Which is understandable to a degree. I mean, more or less, Matthew is just kind of snooping around, making shots and accusations in the dark. But he is pretty correct that that passage does indeed seem to represent some representation of Emma's mental state. And yeah, I think I might have mentioned whenever we were reading it initially, it seemed to express a very isolated view. But Dr. James seems to take it a bit of a different direction. He seems to think that Emma was more of an explorer going into territories of the human mind and understanding that most people just couldn't really comprehend. But I don't know. Still a lot of postulation. Though they're like I think Winona had said, there must have been a reason that it was bookmarked and why it was being brought to our attention. You know, why it was brought to Winona's attention from Emma's point of view, right? In addition to that, you might recall that it was mentioned that there was one other person in the room besides the father, Dr. Samuel, Dr. James, and Morgan. And that was this head nurse here. From her, we can get a little bit more insight into that room that we were not given access to during those final few, I guess, sad moments for Kathy's life. I mean, while she doesn't have the medical degree of a doctor, nurses go through a lot in their day-to-day jobs. They have a lot of keen understanding, and they're right there with the patients. I mean, they do a lot of work for a lot less money than a doctor, so definitely give a lot of respect to nurses. And indeed, she gives us some additional insight that neither Dr. Samuel, Morgan, or Dr. James gave us, and that was the fact that it actually seemed that whenever Father Barton came into the room, that Kathy did seem a little bit more relaxed. She seemed like she was going to get doing better. But yeah, as we, kind of overheard from outside the room and, having to deal with the inevitable fact, something just set Kathy off, and she went from 0 to 60 to dead pretty quickly. Though the nurse takes it a weird direction here and says she was so relieved she died? That seems a bit inexplicable. Now, it still gives a very good indication that someone that went into the room seemed to be the catalyst for setting Kathy off, but either way, we do also get an indication that Kathy's room is still within the hospital. It's down in the, I think, morgue, I suppose, down in the basement. Sadly, we are not able to go down there. I think we would be actively blocked if we tried to go down there. And also, they give you this impression that maybe you could learn about the funeral from the nurse, but that's sadly not the way to go. You definitely have to learn about it from the priest, or from the Father Barton, earlier on in the day, so yet another reason why that city council meeting was so very important to make sure and get to. Really, though, the primary and definite reason we wanted to be here, like I said, is not going to be till about 5:55 to 6 o'clock. And it's going to be up on this floor, so after spending quite a bit of time just kind of freaking out the nurses, we are going to want to head down to this room here on the right. Because unexpectedly inside, we find our homeroom teacher, Liz. Likewise, she is pretty surprised to see us, but she does have a pretty good reason for being in this room with Barbara. The reason being is that Liz and Barbara are granddaughter and grandmother. I kind of get the impression that maybe Liz and Matthew just kind of have a passing relationship, and that maybe Liz has something of a closer relationship with maybe Winona or Emma. It's a bit hard to judge. But they are both pretty welcoming to having Matthew in the room. And we also learn that Barbara, unexpectedly, seems to have some connection to Emma. She used to come visit old Granny Barbara here quite often. If only to hear Barbara's tales about the olden days, I think is how they define it. Also Matthew trying to keep that stiff upper lip, that positivity, that Emma is somewhere alive out in the town somewhere. Like I just mentioned, Emma does come here quite often, and the primary reason for visiting this sufferer of ouchie ouchie foot is to hear Granny's tales of the olden days. Barbara, as I think has been mentioned, has been a denizen of Mizzurna Falls for probably over half a century at this point, so she knows quite a bit about the history of Mizzurna Falls. Though I guess some of these tales of the olden days are not always nice tales to hear. Considering what we've already learned about Mizzurna Falls and its current, present sordid history, I can only assume how things must have been even more raucous and tumultuous back in the 50s or 60s or even going back to the early 1800s. For all we know, the Donner Party came through and there's a whole cannibal craze going on or something. But Liz really doesn't want to have to hear any more granny stories about ye olden raucous times. And we are not going to be able to hear about them ourselves right now, but she does offer to have us visit later. Maybe she'll tell us more stories then. And also we can have a bit of a conversation with Liz to maybe get a little bit more understanding about Kathy. I think whenever we ran into her back in the school, I think whenever we were visiting the library, we did try to get a little bit of information from her regarding Kathy. yeah, yet again, she really only had a scant passing knowledge about Kathy. I mean, it's just surface level stuff, like, she didn't seem super happy, she didn't seem like she had a lot of friends. Pretty much things we already kind of covered from literally everybody else in town. Like, even her dad said she was pretty introverted. But yeah, much like I think Lorraine, the waitress from the diner, said, Liz seems to think that Emma and Kathy were connected in so much as people really didn't see past like the surface level, that, you know, deeper down, there's probably something deeper, something more enigmatic below the surface. Oh yeah, she kind of wants to respect the whole student-teacher relationship and not really delve too much deeper into that. Still, Liz is nice enough to inform us that someone else might actually have known Kathy a little bit better, and that's her homeroom teacher, who, yeah, we had not heard about previously. And that teacher's name is Holly, and she is usually in the staff room at the school around 2 p.m. So it definitely seems like someone we are going to want to hit up probably tomorrow, considering it is already well past 2 p.m. at this point. But yeah, considering that it is so late, the next viable thing we have to do is, well, it's not going to be for almost another 2 hours on the opposite side of town. In fact, in what I would call almost, I guess, what the town would be considered a seedy part, here at the lovely and welcoming Bar Wolves. Some expert driving from... Wait a minute, who is that? That's Father Barton. Seems like a weird place for him to just pull that hairpin turn off. But yeah, we wanted to come here at around 8 p.m. to hopefully meet up with Dr. James to have more of a talk about, well, hopefully Emma, because he's been a bit vague. Just like back in the hospital, a little bit of condescension definitely hurts Matthew's feelings. I mean, he really is trying his best to find Emma, and everybody else just seems to be taking what he's doing as a bit of a joke. I mean, personally, I feel like we are making pretty good headway. We're finding clues. You know, run into people that might know stuff. I mean, it's only the first day of our investigation, but Matthew, he just feels like we could be doing a whole lot more. And in fact, he does probably feel a tinge of jealousy with the fact that Emma went to Dr. James rather than trying to talk about her feelings directly to Matthew. Still, we get, I guess, what is actually the true reason that Dr. James wanted us to come to Bar Wolves, which is connected to this gentleman, Wolf, who considering the name of the bar itself, you can pretty much definitely assume, yep, he is the owner, and coincidentally, he has his pulse on the throbbing vein of the Mizzurna Falls nightlife. And yeah, it definitely seems the rules are a little bit lax here at Bar Wolves. You don't seem to card here. Though Matthew is on this straight and narrow, he doesn't want to be drinking on the detective job that he is currently on, so he's good. He turns down that alcoholic beverage. we get a short synopsis of Wolf here, as we already covered, bar owner, and liaison to the nightlife of Mizzurna Falls. I'd say the Bar Wolves is more or less analogous to the Bang Bang Bar in Twin Peaks. It's kind of a nightlife hub for the people of Twin Peaks to kind of get out their aggression, to relax, and obviously to do some shady dealing. So definitely a place we are going to want to visit probably almost every night of the game. But it definitely seems like maybe coming up to the bar to make an order was not the best way to ingratiate ourselves to Wolf. Yeah, he's more than willing to give us a free glass of milk on the house, but he wants us to get the fuck away from the bar and stop bothering his customers. Before we do that, though, we can't stop our investigative nature. And believe it or not, it does seem like Wolf had some knowledge about Emma. In fact, she seemed to be a somewhat regular patron here at Bar Wolves. Obviously, her beauty kind of got the attention of some of the local patrons here. But it's not just that kind of garnered her a lot of attention. In addition to that, she had an unexpected wild side. And one night, a gentleman was being a little bit too forward, and Emma just reeled back and forked him in the thigh. And as you can probably guess, this is a bit confusing to old Matthew here. His gentle pane of stained glass, or however he defined her earlier on. Yeah, he probably didn't expect her to be a fork-wielding maniac drunk on her own lusty power, I suppose. And that did garner something of a reputation about being a wild woman down here at Bar Wolves. And she apparently did come down to the bar by herself more often than not, though there was one circumstance where she did happen to come down here with another girl. Sadly, at this point, with our glass of milk and already having rubbed Wolf the wrong way, there's not that much more we can get out of Wolf here. Especially, he probably doesn't want to be known as being a chatty Cathy and just being a loose-lipped man. Especially if his patrons want to be keeping on the down low. But yeah, there is definitely the possibility this could have been where Cathy and Emma first hung out, met up, and started down their road of debauchery that led to whatever happened in the forest. But we aren't going to want to leave the bar just yet. We want to pass a couple hours here, soaking in the atmosphere, maybe having a very expensive bag of chips. Not really in the mood for coffee or another glass of milk, but Wolf, being a good bartender, says, well, usually that salt goes a little bit better with an alcoholic beverage. But he's more than happy to serve us a plate of fresh chips, I guess. Which I'm just going to sit here and annoy the shit out of him by not doing anything for a good solid hour. We're playing mind games with him. Yeah, he'll learn not to mess with Detective Matthew Jr. But yeah, few other patrons have managed to meander their way into the bar, including old Mel here. As we know, he is a bit of a booze hound. But after his day, I'm not really wanting to ruffle his feathers. And most of the other patrons, they are just sad sacks just sitting at tables, looking at nothing, doing nothing. Still, I do enjoy the atmosphere of Bar Wolves here with all of its very unique neon signs. Still, though, it is getting a little bit late. Kind of want to, I don't know, enjoy the night as is, the cool, crisp air. Maybe it'll help me think just to go out and kind of take in the night that probably Emma and Kathy had last night. Yeah, there is a definite difference between the dusk and the nighttime. I think night really fully sets in at 8, and also I really can't understand what Father Barton is doing out here. Something a bit unsettling about a priest just chilling outside a bar by himself for hours on end. Still, there is one, I guess, easily missed thing we want to try to do before we head home for the evening and call it a night. And that will not happen for probably another 40 minutes or so. And this is something, obviously, you will miss if you do happen to be asleep in bed already. Yeah, out of nowhere, we get a mysterious phone call. And it turns out to be Winona. I wonder what she's doing up at such a late hour. Why, she is breaking her curfew, going out at probably a very dangerous time of night for a young lady. Seems, though, that she does have a couple things on her mind, and she's looking for a friend to talk to. And that is definitely right up our alley. In fact, it might even be able to give us some additional information about maybe Emma's mindset and some things that we just had not picked up on, being, I guess, male friends to female friends. I don't know. That line was still very weird to me. But yeah, we've got a pretty full-up map here. And the park that Winona mentioned was right down the street here, represented by that little clock. But yeah, there are a whole lot of things you can miss in this game the first time around. People at different locations that just maybe might not make immediate sense, or phone calls leading into interesting nighttime interludes here. I mean, there's no real repercussion to staying up 24 hours a day. It's just, yeah, sleeping is the only way you can save. I'm not sure if I had mentioned that previously, but yeah, one of the small annoying caveats of the game is the only way to save is to sleep, and sleep in turn always moves time forward, so yeah, there's definitely a balancing act there. Still, while I was a bit worried about Winona being out in the middle of a dark and dangerous night, the park itself seems pretty well illuminated. And really, the primary concern I have right now for Winona is just her mental well-being. I mean, obviously, she is still very upset about, her friend Emma going missing, and I'm sure Kathy's death did not sit very well with her. But yeah, there's more to it than just that. I mean, there's always something below the surface in this town with different people. And indeed, for the relationship between Winona and Emma, yeah, it's not the same, or at least it doesn't seem the same to Winona as it does with the emotional conflicts, I guess, between Emma and Matthew here. Yeah, indeed, Winona seems to have always felt something strange emanating from Emma. She always had this want to get out of town. And beyond that, she also seemed to have something of, I don't want to say a split personality, but we do learn from Winona that Emma did happen to bring her to Bar Wolves at one instance. And while being at Bar Wolf, Emma seemingly turned into a completely different person. Yeah, she started drinking heavily. She probably started flailing around, spinning around with just a multitude of kitchen utensils, knives, spoons, spatulas. It was a bit difficult for Winona to watch and really take in. And strangely, we had not heard this mentioned before, but there was a creepy guy at the bar that, I guess, tried to interact with Winona and Emma. But not only did Emma turn the guy away, but she also told Winona that she should probably just go home too, as this is not a good place for a nice girl like her. And yeah, there was just a completely, I don't want to say Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation with Emma, but there was different personality just, laying in wait in her mind that her friends really just never knew about. And while I'm sure both Matthew and Winona always wanted to be there for Emma, there must have been some reason why she never wanted to reveal this other side to them. And yeah, on that fateful night, Winona had a few strange words delivered to her from Emma. Namely, the fact that Emma wanted to know if Winona would be sad if she just happened to up and disappear one day. Yeah, obviously Winona took that very hard. I mean, it's tough to have your friend question whether or not you even care about them. But it all just seemed a really big joke to Emma, at least in whatever mindset she was currently in at that point. And we are given a tough choice here. We can maybe try to talk to Winona a little bit more here, but I think there might be a better avenue to make things awkward. Either way, Matthew does his best to console Winona. And to me, this is especially awkward because we did have that conversation back in Emma's house with her parents where I think Winona knows that Emma had feelings for Matthew and that Matthew had feelings for Emma, but I think Winona also has feelings for Matthew, and he's probably a bit oblivious to those. But to try to do his best to console Winona, he says that maybe Emma just wanted to keep those two lives separate between the raucous girl that forked people at Bar Wolves and just the normal high school girl because, yeah, maybe Matthew and Winona were just not ever going to be ready for that type of lifestyle. Maybe they just had a normalcy that Emma wanted to keep free from her wild side. It's definitely a positive spin to put on things. I'm not sure if I truly believe that, but I get the feeling no matter what, Matthew wants to believe that, and he wants to try his best to calm Winona down, and it seems to have done the trick. So with that, we at least figure out that mysterious girl that was with Emma that night at Bar Wolves. And it does introduce us to the fact that there might have been an untoward fellow, maybe not the guy that got forked, but another guy that also had some interactions with Emma at Bar Wolf. Maybe something else for us to catch up on. Still, I feel pretty good. We got Winona back home safe and sound. She seems to be doing better, and I feel a little bit better now that the situation has subsided a little bit. For now, well, I think we've had a pretty successful Christmas day of investigating. I think we got a lot to look forward to tomorrow. So for now, just going to go ahead and head back to home base. And I'm going to call it a night. Hopefully you will join me tomorrow as we start our second day of investigations. And maybe we'll be one step closer to finding out the truth about what happened to Kathy. And also, where's Emma?